Hey folks, welcome to This Photo Life. I'm your host, Andy McSweeney, and how you shooting? Why don't we try that for the intro for a while? Maybe someone's done it, I don't know. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to This Photo Life. As I just said, I am so happy to have you listening. I'm also happy to be back on air, having said last episode that I wasn't continuing the podcast apparently was untrue. Because after a couple months off and starting up other projects, getting them rolling along, and, doing some of the things that I was talking about doing that would take away from the podcast, well, I find myself with some nice gaps in time. I mean, they're not for the greatest reason ever, which is, of course, this continuing madness that is 2020, as far as lockdowns, as far as all this other stuff. But we make the most of it. We make lemonade from lemons, and we decide to start up the podcast on the audio front once more. It is also interesting for This Photo Life and my future content output, whatever you want to call it, that this is also now available on video. You might even be watching this natively on video. Hello if you are, and hello if you're watching on audio. I love you too. But yes, you can go to facebook.com/Andy McPhoto and or youtube.com/Andy McPhoto, ANDYMCPHOTO, and you'll be able to watch all this on video and understand what I'm referring to when I say for you on the video feed. So that's going on, and it's a bit of a change in format, and we've evolved the show a little bit as we reboot and move forward. I have to say one of the big losses here is just not having DJ Biaz around. It isn't because me and him had bad blood. You know, we're still mad buds. But I want to turn around the show just a little quicker and easier and a little more contained. And, he's always been fantastic about getting me stuff on time when I need it. But I'm just taking it down a notch by simplifying and sort of, I guess, lo-fying the show a little bit more. So we lose intro song, outro song. We lose some breaks in the middle by Biaz. We also get lower production value as far as the sound production because I'm going to record this and try and get it at the same day, both on video and audio. However, we gain a little bit of simplicity, mes amis. And simplicity is a wonderful thing in photography. It's also a wonderful thing in life. So that is another new major objective as we reboot, restart, and rebirth This Photo Life. So enjoy that and enjoy all these changes and growth. If you're watching this on the video feed, yes, it's in black and white, so don't worry that your monitor's crapping out. And if you're listening to this on the audio feed, well, I suppose it's getting through fairly clear, at least my sound production bar says so. And you can enjoy the audio side fully unedited, just like the video, because I think it's time that we don't go through it word for word afterwards and just clean up any ums, ahs, and all that. I'm going to be working on that too, so that's part of my new challenge this time. Yay! And life is challenges, photography is challenges, everything is a challenge. You can look at it as a good thing or a bad thing, and I try to lean towards the good thing in most cases. I'm not always an optimist, and you'll certainly hear that on this show, especially with upcoming segments like the news, although mostly it's happy camera talk this week. Yeah, we are doing things on the loose, free, unscripted, me from the heart in one way or another. And ladies and gentlemen, with our low production values and shaky webcam, look at this. Look at that on the video. Oh yeah, we actually moved it all the way over. There we go. Yes, it's easier than the GoPro to hook up, boys and girls. Well, all this is continuing to happen on This Photo Life as we try to add a little quirkiness, fun, creativity, and whatever else comes up on the show. So enjoy. Feel free to check out the last 34 episodes on the audio front through your favorite podcast provider if you're new here, maybe through the video feed. And why don't we move forward, boys and girls? I've talked a lot about what's going on this. What's going on in the photo news? What's going on in the industry? What has happened over the last little while? I've been off air over the last couple of months, so we could cover the news pretty profoundly and deeply, but I think we can do better than that and keep it a little bit tight. You know, the objective of this episode at the minimum is to go under an hour as a general rule. So why don't we dig into it? What's happened over the last few weeks that's worth mentioning in photo life as we're in the mid-end of September on the 17th of 2020? Well, one of the joys of the video feed is that if you're watching along, you can see me browse along through to the internet at the same time. I'm turning off the main screen and you see me just in the corner because, hey, here I am. And you can also see that I'm at currently the website, The Photographer. It's one of my, excuse me, it's one of my news references for the quick go-to that I like to have sometimes, just getting the photo news. I'm actually leaning more towards Petapixel quite often, and I'm just going to open them up right here and now. They are one of the major photo news sites, and they don't just do news like these other sites. They also give you tips on your creativity in all the respects, you know, street, landscape, architecture, whatever the hell you're up to. You can see at the top bar, they even mention things like the Apple Watch telling us when it's golden hour on its new release. But it's a source that I'm going to be looking at, and as, you know, pointing towards the more credible sources if you want more than my quick recap and 2 cents opinion with maybe some profanity. Well, you want to check out these sites. Petapixel.com, fstoppers.com is also well worthy. Enough of them going to open up their homepage. And as mentioned when we landed there, The Photographer. They all have their charms, they all have their nuances, and you'll see, you know, all the major news through these 3 outlets as well as many more. I'd say also there are certainly many places that you can get your photo news. So, you know, don't be shy to check those out too. In fact, for the whole discussion commentary side of things, I'd love to hear what news sites you guys look at for photography news. So there's some comment material. Hit me up and let me know. Maybe it'll get featured on a future podcast. And just cleaning up my tabs a little bit, let's get to the photo news. I mean, first and foremost over the last couple weeks, in fact, over the last 24 hours, here on September 17th, Nikon has unveiled the 50mm 1.2 f-stopped and the 14 to 24 zoom f2.8 lenses for the Z mount. This is all straight from Petapixel with me riffing off of it and trying to sum it up. And boys and girls, if you don't know, the Z series of cameras are the mirrorless cameras for Nikon. Those of you on the feed can see right there that this is a smaller, lighter design for cameras. Nikon has joined the fray along with Canon over the last 18 months in the mirrorless market. And, well, basically they're reintroducing a whole new generation of lenses. These are lenses that have existed before but are made especially for the F-mount. And, of course, with mirrorless, we get a chance, and just new times, we get a chance to reboot designs and bring the latest, greatest tech to the front. So pretty cool, whether you're a Nikon, Sony, or Canon shooter, to have these lenses coming out. Of course, Sony has had a few years ahead in the market on that, as mentioned. And now with Nikon putting out the 50mm f1.2s lens, I think they're doing nice for that particular focal length. That's, of course, a very classic focal length. On the video side, if you see me in the corner, it's, you know, putting a little square over reality. On a full frame, it would feel like you're just boxing in your point of view as you're seeing it as a human. So very cool for that. And it's a super popular lens for portraits in particular. So having a low-numbered f1.2 lens means that you're going to get these dreamy, out-of-focus, bokeh-filled backgrounds. I'm trying to also explain some of this stuff to new listeners who are not experts in photography, you expert photographers listening in. So summing all that up, it's got, as I say, the main feature of going down to f1.2. I think that's really the headline here because we have, you know, the usual thing with a nice nano coating on the lens itself so that you're going to get low reflections, easy cleans from moisture. RNEO coating is also a new thing they have. And, well, you got your autofocus, your multiple lens elements, etc., so forth. It's also only just over 1 kilogram, so 2.4 pounds if you are using that system. And it's not a small lens, but that's to be expected for this kind of thing. I mean, it's nice to see Nikon getting aggressive with their lens releases. It felt like they started slow at first, so very good to see this one pop up. And I'm a commercial portrait shooter, so I could look at this lens and consider it towards the budget, even in these shrunken times, or at least, when shrunken times end. I gotta say, it's not quite my lens. I find it's a little bit of overkill for me on the soft bokeh. I mean, obviously, I wouldn't say no to it. It's going to be dreamy, and it's going to be concise, and it's going to do its thing. And that's all well and good. But, well, price-wise, I don't see it in front of me, but I'm going to guess at least $1,500 or euros. So at my budget and the uses of this particular lens, it's great to see, but I can't really add that much on the excited factor. I gotta say, moving through to the Nikon Z 14 to 24 f2.8s, that this is where I do get a lot more excited, because this is my kind of lens for portraits, for landscapes, for architecture, for street photography, for pretty much everything, because I'm a wide angle shooter by nature, and also being a Nikon shooter, I should add, for this part of the news. I think it just is pretty awesome to see this lens pop up on the Z mount. It's also small, compact. It's got a lot of good optics by the spec side of it. It's 35% lighter than its mirrored camera predecessor, as you can see right here on the screen through Petapixel. And, well, yeah, we're going to have, as Nikon promises, the optical superiority pros will expect from one of the Holy Trinity lenses, because the Trinity is that wide, middle, and zoom range, isn't it? So I think it looks pretty cool. I don't have a Z camera yet, but if I got one, I would certainly be looking at this. I also really like that you can put filters on the front of this lens. I mean, the older version of this for the mirrored cameras of the 14-24mm was a big fat bulb, and you not only had to watch out for it on a regular basis, but you had to buy a whole special adapter kit, usually expensive side, just to be able to use like a polarizing filter or something like that. So I think this is a really big step forward for Nikon and wide angle shooters in general. Obviously, I can't comment on it because I'm just here reading Petapixel along with the rest of you. There are comments I think will be appropriate to how you feel this on this one way or another. I'm feeling pretty positive on this one. I can't really shit or poop on this too hard, because, I mean, I'm a wide angle thinker. I'm thinking of getting this one of the Z cameras for my next Nikon DSLR full frame. This is just pure win across the board. And to me, the 50mm is a dream cherry on top. So yay, Nikon. I've slagged you before on the show when you haven't really come up to a standard that I think is reasonable. So you did it this time. I'm going woohoo. And I want to see more of this. You know, it's great that you have your prosumers from the start, looked after, but getting these pro lenses out there is really going to excite the market and give you a good name, girl. So keep it up there and don't fuck it up. And boys and girls, I think that covers the news and a little bit of profanity / honest opinion from Andy. I'm sorry if your ears are sensitive to this, but I swear I try not to be gratuitous with it. And let's move on to the next news of major note in the camera game. Also through Petapixel, well, at least read on this website, Petapixel. Ladies and gentlemen, Sony has unveiled the ultra-compact Sony a7C full-frame mirrorless camera. And there's a picture through Petapixel for those of you watching through the video feed. The biggest news on this is the fact that it's a new design for Sony full frames. It's using a side viewfinder instead of being on the middle of the camera like traditional cameras, and even the new mirrorless cameras from Sony have pretty much stuck to. I've been glad as a Fujifilm shooter to have that option of having the viewfinder on the side of the camera because I find it more comfortable for my nose. And also for the portrait side of thing, I find it adds just a little more humanity and intimacy, shall we say, just not to have my face fully covered. So big advantages to this, basic design philosophy. Leica, of course, is well known for this, so we could even say it's the Leica style. But Sony has bucked their own trend of putting it in the middle and gone with this rangefinder view, as it's formally called. I think this is great. I mean, I'm not a Sony shooter, but I play one with my friends, and when I do my work as Photo Tour Bruges or instructing you in one way or another. People bring all kinds of cameras on my photo tour, and now that I'm online, I'm talking still about all cameras. So I try and read up and try out these things as much as possible. And I gotta say, I almost bought a Sony full frame instead of going for my D800 a few years ago, and only just played it safe because I'm a pretty active guy, so a rugged full DSLR body was my fate that moment. With the mirrorless side of things growing, and also now being on Fujifilm for my mirrorless smaller system, well, hey, I can't speak as a Sony shooter, but like I say, get to play with the friends' cameras, and you guests let me touch your cameras too, at least pre-COVID. So I am pretty happy for the Sony shooters and part-time shooters like myself. I mean, scrolling through this thing, you can see it's a nice change in philosophy. It's still a little high priced. I've seen this article before. I believe it's about $2,000, which I think could be brought down a little bit more in this age of competition through these big camera companies. Also, it's not entirely pro-minded. You can see on the top dial that there's program, aperture, shutter, and manual settings, as long as your other speed dial access stuff. But, I mean, hey, for a little variety and loosening up on design by Sony, I think this is pretty monkey balls okay. Hey, folks? I did see one point in one of the articles, maybe here on Petapixel, that it's a little silly, and Fuji does this too. If you look at the top of the camera, it's got a dedicated exposure dial. That dial you turn to make things brighter and darker, no matter the light. I like it on my camera, but I can understand some shooters saying they'd like that to be a neutral reprogrammable button. But hey, I mean, overall, this is a pretty good thing. They've also introduced a new compact flash. They've also introduced a 28 to 60 millimeter f4 5.6 zoom lens, which is looking pretty, consumer standard. But with Sony, you tend to get a very nice standard to that. And hey, we're living in the golden age of gear and camera releases, whatever your level of photography. So it ain't gonna be crap. Yeah. So for $1,800 for the body and $2,100 for the kit lens to go with it, you can consider that. You can consider that, Sony shooters. And if I was a Sony shooter looking for a new body, especially the megapixel count and other specs on this, seem to indicate how it's very much street and fast focus minded. Yeah, I could see this being a win on the Sony side. And as a casual popcorn observer, nice work. Nice. Yeah, can't complain there. Good work. And you have a dog, all a Staffy Terrier or a Pitty right there in your hands on video. So good work, Sony. I'm going to give you a pass just for having the Staffy right there. What a cutie. You only see that on the video feed, but if you're looking at the Petapixel article with the audio, I guess you're getting the next best thing. Boys and girls, moving on in the news, there is so much going on. GoPro put out a Hero 9 camera, another update and new step in their GoPro cameras. I didn't bother leaving the tab open because I use a GoPro 7 Black, I believe, but I'm not deep in this market. Even on tour, most people are bringing a smartphone or some sort of compact or DSLR. So GoPros, I only get so much limited exposure. Usually I hit video and I'm off on my way. But I like what I saw there just before we start talking about what's on screen. I do actually like for a lot of these action cameras as a videographer now that There's a front-facing screen so you can see yourself. Good work there. And actually, another thing I can say on the GoPro 9 is apparently there's better stabilization. So rock and roll there, and anything that helps people get a straighter, more stable shot is a win in my book. So no bitching or moaning at GoPro there. We're on the Fujifilm article, which now via f-stoppers, fstoppers.com. Fujifilm announces the XF 50mm f1.0 weather resistant WR. It's got autofocus, it's got huge aperture, and it's got weather sealing, says f-stoppers, but without that kind of drama. It is Fujifilm's new lens, and as a Fujifilm shooter and lover, I would be slack to not mention and throw down opinion on this. I mean, look at this thing. It goes down to f1. It looks suave, sexy, and just what I like in a Fujifilm lens or otherwise. We can see right there on the little detail photo, f1.0. Some of the reviews sound very promising, especially when you start dialing it up to 1.4 and beyond. And it's got weather resistance. It's going to have the latest, greatest in the autofocus. Oh, it looks very, very nice and kind of makes me think about Nikon with their f1.2 50mm. Now, obviously, on a crop system, 50mm is not the same number as a full frame. As we know, 50mm on a crop camera, censored camera like Fujifilm, will be about 75mm, but that makes it a nice, tight portrait lens. And hey, that is pure goodness on the Fujifilm camp by me, eh? I agree with that. Goes up to f16. No stabilizer, but who needs it for this kind of shooting? Oh, what's the minimum focus distance? That's something I'm looking at on a lot of new lenses. Da, 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 da. See, this is why I just quote these sites. They're professionals. They would never write in an article or on a podcast. Da, 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 da. No, I'm not even seeing. Oh, there it is. 0.7 meters. So that means 7 centimeters. Okay, that's interesting. You might be able to do some interesting semi-macro stuff with this. Cool, 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 cool. It is the golden age of gear, and Fujifilm, there's some worthy stuff to hear about on the 50mm f1.0. Again, as I said with the Nikon, it's not exactly my kind of lens, although on this system, especially for the weight, it's a little bit smaller, so I could maybe lean into it there. But to be honest, it's not the extreme in depth of field that either my tastes or especially my budget can afford. So I can't really see myself getting honestly too excited about that. Aside from just loving how Fujifilm tends to put out interesting stuff and is pretty cool overall. I say that, of course, having been lent some Fujifilm gear in past and being a friend of Fujifilm at times or others. Don't worry, boys and girls, none of this is paid, and if it was, trust me, I probably would be, I'd be doing a different kind of show. So that is that on the Fujifilm side of things, and the Canon, not the Canon side of things, the Nikon side of things, as well as the Sony side of things, not to mention the GoPro side of things. Over the last couple months, Canon has some new things with their R5, and I'm sure if we ticked around pretty quick, we'd find it. That is another full-frame body that has been released by them, and good on them. I think the main talk we could have there, but I don't really see much point getting into it, is just that Canon's, you know, in this bit of kerfuffle, because apparently with the R5 in one of its video modes, because it cuts the time short on how much video you could do, I believe it's 8K slow motion cutting off after 8 minutes or even less. Yeah, I mean, you can tell by me not even knowing the specs that I'm not deep in this. It's something going around the camera industry and Canon shooters especially. This article talks about Canon exec says we don't cripple our cameras according to f-stoppers. They probably aren't. They're probably limiting some options or, waiting until they get it right before they release it on a firmware update. On the other side of things, I can understand why people want the latest, greatest, and want, the most out of their camera, especially when you get into a couple of $1,000s easily just for a body. But at the same time, I mean, different tools for different jobs. And if you really want to be able to do 8K slow-mo video or just extreme stuff in the video end of things off a camera that's originally built for stills and is evolving, but not evolved into a full video camera, well, then you're going to have to get a full video camera. You're going to have to bite the bullet. You're going to have to look at $4,000 or $5,000 for the body, probably getting some new lenses and the whole thing with it. But you want to play the game at that level, maybe get off Canon's back and look at what they do on the video side of things, dedicated wise. That's all I have on that, and I guess on the news side of things too. So that means, boys and girls, I can flip Windows back into my recorder. I can turn this off as far as Firefox being shown up. Hello again, for those of you on the video side. Never went away for those of you on the audio side. And yeah, that's the news. Feel free to let me know if you find this stuff interesting. I'm going to recap the news with my 2 cents of worthless opinion a little more often on this. So that'll be something to keep the photo vibe strong and not too loose or distracted, shall we say, away from photography. And moving on from the news at the photo industry in large, well, I guess I can fill the rest of the show talking about what I've been up to on my photography. It's not really just for me either. I mean, I get some therapy of sharing my work and talking about what I've been up to. Boys and girls, if nothing else, I want every time that I talk about my photography for you to think about your photography. If I'm talking about techniques I'm using between this shot and this shot, or just rambling off on the whole photo philosophy side of things, that's because first and foremost, especially as this photo life starts up, I think with a new momentum and even bravely saying we're not just an experiment in podcasting anymore. Oh, yeah. Take something out of this for your photography. Think about what you could be doing in a situation similar to me, to something else in your photography where it can relate. I mean, so much of it just cross-pollinates, from technical settings to little physical moves to creative ideas, like even tilting it to the side. It all mixes and weaves, and I don't just do this for my ego. So yes, and on video you can see the ridiculous faces I make. Ladies and gents, let's take away my ridiculous face on the video into the smaller corner of the video feed so that I can now turn off Firefox browser and open it up in Lightroom. This will be a bonus of doing the video feed for both you and me, because I can sort of walk through this stuff as I'm looking at it, and you can see it as I'm looking at it. I'm going to keep this broadcast up on the audio and video side of things, but we'll see where it all evolves. Right now, I only pay $50 a year for my podcast hosting, so hey, what the hell? And with all that said, and trying not to get too distracted, we're now in Lightroom, as those of you can see. And for what I've been up to on my photography work, I mean, as mentioned, I have had a little bit on the client side. This isn't even going so far back. I'm just even going to turn on the specs. What do we got? January, February, March, April, May. This goes back to May and starts with a photo shoot at B&B Barry Cell. That is one of my happy clients who's come back to me more than once for videos, for photos of their interior. Hey, maybe I'll learn to talk on this video format of the podcast. Boys and girls, it is a bed and breakfast in a beautiful, quiet corner of Bruges called St. Gilles or St. Gilles. This is what it looks like from the outside, and just cruising around, you can see that I kept busy with Benny running around his building to free the flag so I could take my open shot. Do it a couple times over on either the alignment or the editing, because you can see on the video side of things, we're doing some touching up and taking it all home on the edit. You can take the photo fine off camera, but if maybe you want to just touch it up, add your lovely wife and Benny sitting there posing for a cup of coffee on Photoshop, all that kind of thing. Well, you're going to end up with a few versions of the same shot. You can see I took it into crunchy defined land here in Nik Collection just to get that extra level of detail and maybe slight crunchiness, especially since while recording video, Lightroom's going to show some funky empty blue skies or whatnot. But yeah, scrolling through and not being boring, you can see keeping busy, especially on the exterior of things. I'm just going to scroll through shots because in interior architecture, you do end up realigning photos quite a bit, like you can see. And you can just generally see I'm knocking it out for the nice little details, the wide shots that get touched up into, a nice intimate room photo using the doorway for depth. Even on the audio side of things, I think you know that if you take a photo through a doorway, you'll get this extra deep feeling to things, a bit of a welcoming vibe. So this is certainly a photo I was looking out for. And well, I mean, I could go through these all day. I don't think it's the most exciting for those on the audio side to just dig through things. But you can see with a couple of rooms remodeled, even with the post-corona vibe that's been going on, Benny was able to have me over to B&B Barry Cell to get some work done. So that means for you on the working photographer side of things that there is hope and there is still a little bit of money going around, especially when lockdown eases up like it did finally in summer in Bruges. It's a good thing to keep in mind. You know, if you're not doing this for work, you don't have that worry, and that's one of the benefits of not doing this for work. You know, you get to just love the photography and not care if it makes the rent or otherwise. And I feel blessed that I get a little bit of rent money coming in through little client jobs over the years next to my photo tour work. And, you know, with the slowdown here in 2020 where tourism has really gone pretty quiet, especially on the spending side of things, well, it's nice to have such work in particular. Gotta say, too, that having a photo tour or two is nice. This isn't the only group I've had, but I've had a few people come by. This is actually, on the video side, you can see this, and on the audio side, we're seeing a group wearing a mask each, I should say, not a collective mask. That would break the rules. But they've just taken a photo tour with yours truly, and we're doing the group photo at the end. Now, these fine folks are part of the Young Socialists of Bruges, who decided to take a group tour with yours truly as Photo Tour Bruges. Mostly casual shooters, and that was also nice because I welcome everybody in photography. I get the pros, I get the middles, and I get the casuals. So it's nice to have that variety, and it was nicely casual that day. Also, like I said, just nice to have some work. You know, while I'm recording this today, I got a booking this morning for my next tour, and that's a really nice feeling when that'll be like my third in about 4 months. So whether you're seeing this or feeling this on audio or video, just be glad to know that some of us are getting little bits of work here and there and not all is lost. It's a good feeling, especially if you're a working pro, to hear that some of us working pros are getting a little business. So that's hopeful. And hey, if you are lucky enough to be out and about, whether it's in Bruges or otherwise, you can see here that we have a nice little bit of wall graffiti. I like graffiti. I like it a lot. My home city of Montreal, Canada, is a mecca of graffiti to many because they have encouraged it there for a long, long time and even pay people to put up graffiti so that it not only brings some urban cheer and style and, you know, color in those cold winter days, but it's also supporting local arts. And if it's good enough, there's a good chance it's not going to get tagged over by some stupid tag. So there's a lot of value to graffiti, both on the aesthetic art level and also on the community practical level that has really always made me enjoy graffiti and just be a part of my photography over the ages. And with that, you know, I mean, if you're out there, just grab some graffiti if you're a little nervous on going up to people right now or even being in crowded spaces. There's always something around. I mean, if you're in the middle of the country, you might want to transfer this to abandoned buildings more than graffiti. But these parts of art and life and photographic opportunity, they're just priceless, and they're probably what's going to keep you sane over the tough times of 2020, where you probably don't want to be around people quite so much. So look out for this stuff, and it's something I've been looking out for extra in the city. I have to say I've also looked out for it extra because there's been a graffiti art festival here called the Bridges Street Art Festival. You can check that out with a quick Google or Instagram cake. And yeah, you'll see that Witsche. Sorry if I'm getting it wrong. I'm still getting used to the video and podcasting chat again. Yeah, Witsche basically went around and organized a bunch of graffiti artists to hold the Bridges Street Art Festival so that we'd get some nice graffiti around the city. You know, the city was also very kind with their support, as well as some good sponsors that we always got to thank when such things happen. So that meant that our city has expanded and grown on the urban arts scene just that little bit through this one bold initiative. And it was really a pleasure going around and catching a few things. I haven't loaded them all up because basically this is, you know, trying to balance things as far as showing you stuff and keeping it speedy, especially if you're not seeing it on the audio pod side of things. And then next to that, getting to the next photo that might not be quite so obvious on what's going on. I've been filling my time and keeping my photo skill sharp, as well as continuing my mission of storytelling in Bruges through photography by going to press events. There's no other public events going on, so you know, as an event photographer, partly I've been certainly feeling bored and out of practice. And like I said, I'm documenting the story of Bruges in my own way over time. And things that happen in the press and our community are critical parts of what happens here. Now, it isn't a story about the press, and this is why you're not seeing 5 journalists here. These are all volunteers or city politicians there for the announcement. But yeah, just covering these stories and having something I can share with my community and, you know, share with all of you. The first shot you saw is people who organized Bruges Solidaire, which was a community outreach and support program over our lockdown period. And now people are getting rewarded with shopping passes that give them discounts, coupons, and that sort of thing. So that's a beautiful story that that I can catch in my community in Bruges and, you know, do my job, even if it's not for money, just for, you know, the satisfaction and playing a part in my community. This is good stuff to do, and if you have any opportunity to do the same, you should do it. You know, on the next video feed side of visibility, you'll see this is this young lady who's helped organize and get going the book boxes around our fair city. We all like to read here, or at least a bunch of us do. We have our screens, if nothing else, but books are sometimes nice. And over the last couple of years, there have been these book boxes popping up where you just basically take a book, leave a book. That way you get your book without having to pay or worry. You might get something that you didn't have before. And it's another thing that strengthens our community just from a public gathering place or point of common interest. And, well, basically to have these initiatives up and going, that's the kind of thing I want to be covering. So really, really good. And it gives me, again, a chance to sort of cover the story of Bruges as far as politics, local life, all that sort of thing. On the left of the photo that we're seeing on the video, we have our culture minister. On the next one, we have our, youth prevention and, I believe it's safety minister. Then we have an economics minister. Then we have a bunch of volunteers, community of Bruges in one way or another. This is a story that I can catch. And frankly, since I don't have photo tours, I got to, keep myself busy in one way or another. So real good. And, again, I'm really just so thankful that living here in the city of Bruges over this time, especially the last 8 years doing my photo tour and getting more directly connected with my community, they tolerate me for a quick photo. There's little moments that you can sneak in while they're chatting. Then there's those little moments where they pose for the press for that, hopefully interesting photo that gets people clicking on the article to find out about the community project. And they make some dedicated time for me here and there, and it's just really appreciated. You know, I'm not credited press. I'm an independent photographer. I'm doing my own thing. I love working with the community when possible, when they want to work with me, and covering these little press events like, you know, the launch of a tourism campaign where if you spend more than one night in Bruges, you get some discounts, coupons, etc. That's the kind of thing I'm interested in, especially since, of course, I have a daily photo tour as Photo Tour Bruges, so I'm part of that community. Unfortunately, I'm not part of that program because they are only working with a couple of partners, but hopefully they'll get with it a little more over at the Tourism Bureau as far as supporting all us local small businesses, especially maybe even us creative ones who are contributing to the city. Sorry, was that my personal opinion on politics coming into things? Oh, my bad. Let's go to a wide shot of that room. It is the same event. You can see our mayor from the previous photo, as well as our tourism director, as well as our tourism minister, all sitting at the desk for the chit-chat. This kind of shot is, again, where they're posing for the press and you get something a little more formal. And this kind of photo, you know, as part of the moving around and grooving about that you should be doing with your photography, is the kind of variety that you'll get, as well as, I don't know, a sense of scene and maybe even a natural human moment compared to the slightly more formal press moments. Moving through and flipping away from politics for at least 2 seconds, this is another little thing I've been busy as on my photo, and I hope you're doing it too, which is rolling around and catching some landscapes. This is a very particular shot because, well, just yesterday, in fact, I got to take this while floating down one of the canals of Bruges. Not one of the usual ones where the tourist boats go either, because my man Michiel hooked it up with the city of Bruges that I could go with one of their maintenance boats down the Golden Hand Canal. They're going down there anyways, and as part of the community of creative fellows, as well as documentaires, as well as whatever you want, it was thankfully approved so that I could get out there on that boat and take this photo as well as some others. And actually flicking through the photos, you can see there is not just, you know, the emptiness. There is some light and color and so on and so forth rolling around the frame. I think also you can see I'm getting things like the symbol of the golden hand. Here we can use the mouse, look carefully, or just zoom. We can get a slightly different angle of this little detail of Bruges that I point out on my photo tours as we go down this canal. But from a whole new angle, instead of up there on the just off frame walkway, I get to go down here from the water and get that. So real nice. And then flipping back through to the politics, but, you know, again, still on the community, in fact, focusing quite on it as my closing thoughts. You can see that there is a nice little off-press camera moment from our Mayor Dirk de Vouw, as well as our Minister Martijn Matthijs, who helped organize this art exhibit. Now, it's an art exhibit that's been done as a workshop for a group with dementia here in Bruges. And it's an art project where essentially they're getting, of course, their art therapy by expressing themselves and working off each other. But it's also a chance for them to express dementia as much as possible through art forms. So it was, you know, that's the very short of it. And I really do recommend you check this out if you're in Bruges. It's also something that, you know, matters to me because I think mental health is something that should matter to all of us. We always talk about, you know, keeping the belly trim and not letting the ass hang, but your mental health is so critical to you boys and girls. So you got to look after your head and you got to not think of it as a taboo subject. And even though, as Minister Matthijs says, mental health is not a sexy subject for press, it's something that we got to keep clear in our minds. And especially as you're hearing this before the day, Monday, the 21st of September, is World Dementia Day, also known as World Alzheimer's Day. So think about those people, and if you're feeling charitable, maybe make a little donation in these tough times. And whatever you can do to support the community in mental health, in Alzheimer's, in dementia, in just having a rough time in these rough times, well, do it. You know? This is the kind of thing that I love doing my community press photography for. These are the stories I'm going to, instead of just worrying about every single thing, including a road opening. These are the stories and parts of my community that I care about. And if in some small way I can contribute to by, them letting me come to a press conference and me snapping away, well, then at least I've done something more than just share a link. So please check this out. This is going on from September 21st to October 4th. Here's a couple more photos of the press event of me working it. There are details, by the way, through the Académie Bruges or Académie Brugge, KO. It's on the Catalina Strat number 86. And of course, just please check out their website. But if you're on the video side, you can also see how I covered the spread with the press. Of course, the mayor gets a dedicated shot just because, well, that's what the top banana gets as far as what us press photographers are looking for. But we're covering the spread fully by getting the minister involved, the volunteers from a dedicated angle, and something that isn't just focused on the mayor, but actually more about the artwork that they're producing, because of course that's part of the story, if not one of the core parts of the story. It's why everyone's there. So that's what I've been up to on my photography, my friends, and I hope you're getting some of the same, or this helps inspire some of the same. It's all telling stories, and whether you're out there or stuck indoors, you can do what you got to do to get what you got to get. He says, clicking back over to full size on the video. And I wish you well with it. It's not easy right now with a lot of lockdown times going on. On the professional side of things, it's not easy either. This is part of why I've realized I still do fundamentally have time to do the audio podcast every second week, as well as just plug in the webcam and do a little video next to it. And keep strong with it. Keep strong with it in one way or another, if nothing else. And also, tying nicely into mental health, these are the things that keep you sane. We got to connect to each other. We got to keep each other busy. We got to keep each other entertained. And we got to make each other smile where at all possible. Yeah. All right. That's about it from me as Andy McSweeney Photography here on this Photo Life. I do want to say before I get out of here, once again, that it is really nice being on air. I'm recording this on a Thursday, so I'm going to release it on a Thursday. And actually, I'm going to loosen up a little bit just for scheduling on the audio podcast release. And I guess now the video release, which will be same day. We're going to aim for Wednesday, Thursday, every second week. That way I can focus on my other work and make sure the lights stay on and I can afford to do this sort of stuff. And it also means, by the way, that you can have time to digest all this and pick through it and whatnot. It is also very much worth a mention that every second Sunday, the weeks where I'm not doing a podcast, I'm going to be doing a live cast over on facebook.com/Andy McPhoto. That's Sunday nights at 8 p.m. Central European Time. And we've done 2 already as beta tests and just getting used to it all, because that's, of course, part of the process. There's Ask Andy Anything on Photography, which you can look through, where I dig through your comments in real time. And there's Photo Feedback with Andy, which, since we only got 1 submission for feedback, I filled up by digging through a recent folder of a little trip to Paris in 2016 with photos that weren't gallery ready, finished and all that, so that you could see a little bit of Paris, take your mind off things, as well as see some of the edits I'm doing and some of the choices I'm making. So that's all over on facebook.com/Andy McPhoto, ANDYMCAPHOTO. And same story over on youtube.com/Andy McPhoto, ANDYMCPHOTO. OTO. So please feel free to check those things out, boys and girls. They are unscripted, and that's why the words stumble and mumble every now and then. It's all part of the process, and please keep that in mind with all your creative endeavors, and especially your photography. And I hope you're enjoying this little creative endeavor in podcasting and photography. It's really a joy to be back, knowing I can put out an audio thing and, now I have some video so you can look at my ugly mug wearing glasses. Look at that. Superman, Clark Kent, Superman, Clark Kent, Super Doofus. That's me. And I thank you for listening to the show and watching it and all that sort of good stuff. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Andy McSweeney of Andy McSweeney Photography and Photo Tour Bruges. Feel free to check me out at andymcsweeney.com and or phototourbruges.com for your top daily photo tour in Bruges, as well as all sorts of bits of Bruges. And I wish you well. Now, get me out of here. Pick up your camera. Get out there. Get shooting. See ya.